He was very awe-inspiring when you saw him. He was monumental, grand in nature. His face was like a moon on Laylat al-Badr that had a light coming out of it like the moon on Laylat al-Badr. He was taller than a moderate build, but not exceedingly tall. Because both are, if you see somebody who's very tall, it's strange. Amongst even tall people, it seems strange. If you see somebody short, then also it's noticeable. But he was of a middle stature inclining towards height. Because everything about him was middle. Everything, even his physical description, his color was a middle color. Lam yakun amhaq. He wasn't pasty white and he wasn't black. He was of inclining toward light skin because of the racism in human beings. I mean, that's one of the hikmah of that. Has to do with stupidity in human beings in distinguishing between people because of color. He inclined towards light, but he wasn't pasty white. He was a color like what we call the harvest moon. And his hair was neither straight nor curly. It was wavy. It was middle. Everything about him was middle. He didn't speak slow and he didn't speak fast. He spoke in a moderate tone. His words were neither too short nor were they excessive, but they were always just right. When he spoke, people felt as if exactly the right amount of words were used. Everything about him was moderation. He had a full head, and his hair was wavy. If he parted it, then it parted. It never went past the lobes of his ears if he allowed it to go long, because sometimes he would cut it for ibadah, like the umrah or the hajj, when he shaved. But when he let it, it went to the lobes of his ears, and in some riwayah, just above the shoulder. And then he was azhar al-lawn, which azhar al-lawn is not white and it's not dark. It's a light-skinned, what we would call in English a ruddy complexion. Wasi' al-jabeen, he had a large forehead, which in physiognomy traditionally was an indication of high quality. And then his eyebrows, they were full, and there was a slight space between them. And then he had a vein on his forehead that if he got upset, they could see the vein. Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. The upper part of his nose was aquiline. So he had a beautiful nose that had like a bridging on the upper part. Lahu nurun ya'lu. And he had a light that came from that area of his face that was clearly discernible. وَيَحْسِبُهُ مَنْ لَمْ يَتَأَمَّلْهُ أَشَمْ كَتَّ اللَّحْيَ. He had a full beard, and his eyes were very dark. سَهْلَ الْخَدَّيْن. He had a high, beautiful cheek. ضَلِيعَ الْفَمْ. He had a mouth that was full, so that when he spoke, his pronunciation was perfect. Ashnab, mufallaj. His teeth were beautiful. There was slight space in the teeth. Daqiq al-masruba. He had a light hair on his chest, which was manliness without having a lot of hair. وَكَأَنَّ عُنَقَهُ جِيدُ دُمْيَةٍ. His neck was like a gazelle's neck. He had a beautiful neck and a high neck. And it was like a gazelle's neck. It had like a beautiful, like a silvery clarity to it. Mu'tadil al-khalq. He was balanced in all of his outward aspects. Badinan. He had a strong build. Mutamasikan. And it was all perfectly formed. Sawa al-batni wa sadr. His stomach and his chest were equal. He never had a large stomach. He had no paunch. Even when he was in his 60s, his stomach was always flat. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Allahumma salli alayhi. Mushih al-sadri. He was full-chested, and ba'ida ma bayna al-mankibayn. His shoulders were broad, and he had a large bone. Also his trachea, where it met there was space. وَالسُّرَّ بِشَعْرٍ يَجْرِ كَالْخَطٍ. And then he had a light hair also on his stomach. sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. عاري الثديين, he had no hair over his breast. ما سوى ذلك أشعر ذراعين, he had hair on his arms and some on his shoulders and the upper part of his chest. And he had large full hands and full palms, and his feet were arched, and he was sinewy and strong. Limbs were strong, and he had full calves. His feet were very smooth, which was also because they were desert people and they walked a lot, and people's feet would have a lot of roughness to them. But his feet were so smooth that water would pour off, sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And then when he walked softly, هونا, because the Quran says وَعِبَادَ الرَّحْمَنَ الَّذِينَ يَمْشُونَ عَلَى الْأَرْضِ هَوْنًا. He walked like that, but he was quick-paced, as if he was walking on an incline, sallallahu alayhi wasallam. وَإِذَا الْتَفَتَ جَمِيعًا, when he looked to somebody, he didn't just turn like this, he moved his entire body, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, to give full attention to that person. نظره إلى الأرض أطول من نظره إلى السماء. He looked more at the ground than he did up. His glance was generally down because of the power of his glance. And then most of his looking was mulahadha. When he looked at people, he didn't maintain his stare. He would look and then move away. So as he looked at people, he never fixed his focus on people because of the effect that would have on the people. And then he said to him, describe for me how he spoke, sallallahu alayhi wasallam. What was his and he said, كان رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم متواصل الأحزان. متواصل الأحزان means, like the pure Arabic translation, he was always grief-stricken. But the ulama who commented on that hadith have said that that does not mean that he was depressed. What that means is that if you looked at him, like if you saw him in the mosque, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, if you saw him in the mosque and you looked at him, you would think that he was grief-stricken, because the istighraq, his presence with his Lord was so intense that his face would have a sense of being completely absorbed in thought. And so people that would look at him would think that he had huzn, but it was actually shiddat al-istighraq. And that's why the ulama say the other hadith, وَكَانَ دَائِمَ الْبِشْرَى, that he was always happy. The ulama say that when he was with al-Khaliq, كَانَ دَائِمَ الْأَحْزَانِ. لَمَّا كَانَ مَعَ الْخَلْقِ كَانَ دَائِمَ الْبِشْرَى. When he was with his Creator, that he was in a state of deep contemplation. When he was with creation, he was happy. He smiled. He always looked at people and smiled and made them feel joyful.